Welcome to the Conversation Lab. I'm Don Schaefer. I'm glad you could join us. This past summer, I was able to moderate a panel of the Victoria Forum, which is a partnership with the University of Victoria and the Senate of Canada. The objective of the Victoria Forum is to bring people together and explore how to bridge the divides in our society. Interesting that this year's title was Bridging Divides, Turf, Truth, and Trust. I was able to get permission from the organizers to replay part of this presentation with Senator Rosa Galvez, Kresse Wesling, Balgis Osman Elisha, and Wendy Smith. An incredible group of panelists, and I'm just so honored to have been asked to help put this panel together. Here's the audio version of our plenary session. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. This morning's conversation will analyze our quest to shift our relationship with the natural world from extractive to regenerative by bridging environmental divides and exploring the many conversational ecosystems that come along with them. We all have our own views, our values, and our beliefs of the world and how it should shake out and what it should be. The purpose of this conversation is to try and shift those a little bit. I'd like to introduce our panel. Senator Rosa Galvez is originally from Peru and one of Canada's leading experts in pollution control and its effect on human health. She has a PhD in environmental engineering from McGill University and has been a professor at the University of Laval since 1994. Senator Galvez was appointed to the Senate of Canada on December 2016. Kresse Wesling is a Canadian-born, Kent-based, multi-award-winning environmental entrepreneur and young global leader with a background in venture capital and significant startup experience. Balgis Osman Elisha is a climate change and green growth expert with the African Development Bank. She was a lead author of the UN's IPCC reports and was among a select few to represent the group in 2007. In Oslo to receive the Nobel Peace Prize next to Al Gore. Balgis holds a PhD in forestry science, master in environmental science, and a Bachelor of Science with honors in forestry and agricultural science. Wendy Smith is a Harvard-educated, award-winning academic and the Dana J. Johnson Professor of Management and Faculty, Director of the Women's Leadership Initiative at the University of Delaware. She is an expert on organizational paradoxes, exploring how leaders and individuals effectively respond to contradictory yet interdependent demands. She spends her time continually working to better manage the paradoxes of life that we all face and writes about them in her latest book that she co-wrote with Marianne Lewis, Both and Thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel. My first question to each of you is, I wonder if you could spend a few minutes before we begin by telling us a little bit about yourself, your work, what you're passionate about, and I'm curious what called to you to come to the Victoria Forum. Senator Galvez, do you want to start?
Yes. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so honored to be here with you today. So as Don said, I'm an environmental engineer. I have 47 years in academia. And to tell you the truth, I became frustrated at a point because environmental legislation has impacted my work for all my career. And at a point, I realized that the environmental legislation just only allow, legalize, and attenuate pollution, but it never prevents it. And that's a horrible problem. And we know the state of the environment is a complex issue. We are overpopulation, we overconsume, technology is not clean, and of course cultural differences. But we have been, as humanity, in this conundrum already before. And we have survived because we choose to show solidarity, compassion, cooperation. And I think that we need to redress our economic system. A system where you are allowed to pollute, where you are allowed to litter, and polluter doesn't pay, even though the law says that, needs to be reviewed. And I'm confident that humans, we can do that because we created that system, so therefore we can improve it. Is that enough? Or, yeah?
That's perfect.
Okay, thank you. Of course, always coming to Victoria, beautiful Victoria. How can I say no?
Thank you. Balgis?
Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me to be here. I'm really glad and honored. I'm Balgis Osman Elisha. I'm Sudanese. As Dawn mentioned, I work for the African Development Bank, but I'm always passionate about to work with societies. And my work has always been focusing on the human dimension, the human dimension of the global environmental changes, and how global environmental changes can impact the human beings, and how human beings are, through their different activities, are also impacting the environment. Maybe a little bit about my background, my family, I mean. I'm a member of a large family with 5 sisters, 5 brothers, mashallah. And this fact actually has shaped my views about the future. I mean, when I was a child, it was like we are living in a community. And the fact that you don't have a private resources, you share the space, you share the time, you share the possessions. And within my family, we have been seeing this, like the struggle to maintain the balance between having your own space, having your own personality, and also being part of a whole. And in the middle of this, you see things working through a lot of caring and sharing. And I think this is the main thing that actually that shaped my thinking, as I mentioned. Now, when I see all the problems, I think one entry for the solution is to start by caring and sharing. And I just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy, do you want to?
Yeah, Don, thank you for such a great introduction, and thank you all for being here. It's an honor to be here. I am here today perhaps because of Ben & Jerry's and Enron. I started my academic career because I was a management consultant. I was really intrigued by the social responsibility movement that was bubbling up in the 1990s. My colleagues in management consulting thought that it was very quaint, but not sustainable. And then Enron fell, which reminded us of what happens when corporations overemphasize profits at the expense of thinking about anything else. And I went to grad school to try and understand what it meant for organizations to be part of the solution, not just the problem or not the problem. And I got to grad school to explore that question. My advisor, who was brilliant and wonderful and had access to how IBM was innovating, said to me, "Why don't you study that?" And I said, "I'm not really interested in how corporations grow. I'm interested in how they're more sustainable." And he said, "Well, this social responsibility thing, you're never going to get a job if you study that." Well, 5 years later, when I graduated, he said, "You know, and I studied innovation at IBM. He said to me, "You know, Wendy, that social responsibility thing, that question of how companies think about going beyond profits and being part of, get on that now. It's really, really important." So now, 20 years or so later, I am here studying that question still of how we think about the integration, or we think about the role of social environmental demands within a broader corporation. We think about bringing together competing demands. And in fact, I will go back to my roots and say I think innovation is a really big component to that solution, and that's what brings me here today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And great segue to Kresse.
I almost never know why I'm anywhere, but I'm definitely here because I've been coming to the University of Victoria for several years now, because I see the way that Gustafsson works, and I think it's the future of business. And I think business schools have been failing us for a long time because they've been pumping out this concept that you had to make money at all costs, and actually the costs we've discovered to be too high. But why I run the business that I run is because I had a unique moment in time when I moved to the UK in 2004. I had a tiny, tiny bit of money, enough enough money to explore for a while if I lived on beans on toast and ran everywhere. And what I explored was the landfill sites in the UK. I explored the fact that they had produced 100 million tons of waste, which they were sending to landfill on a tiny little island. And I thought that was obscene. And I thought if I picked one bit of waste and I did something exceptional with it, maybe that would give me permission to collect other waste. The waste I discovered was fire hose, and I turned it into luxury handbags, which I didn't think was a revolutionary or crazy thing, but it really is in an industry where the vast majority of the other players, particularly the big players, call themselves wonderful, innovative, creative companies, and actually they're destroying the environment and exploiting its people. So it's a very destructive industry that hides behind a banner of creativity. And I've been challenging that for 18 years now and having so much more fun than these businesses. And I think that's fundamentally why we've succeeded, because we are designed to give, we're designed to be abundant, we're designed to be connected to our community. And all of that makes everything that we do such a joy and such a privilege. And I guess the reason why I want to talk about regenerative business and be here is because people think we have to give up so much to solve the climate crisis. Actually, we have so much to gain. I sleep at night, and I'm one of the only entrepreneurs that I know that sleeps at night. And I just want everyone else to have that same joy.
Thank you. So I'm going to lean into the first question. The United Nations Secretary General has called the climate crisis a code red and says we're sleepwalking into a climate catastrophe. Others believe that any solutions to change our social reality are hopelessly out of scale to the size of the challenge. Roy Scranton and other catastrophists believe that no one is driving and that no one's going to save us. So who do you believe? And how can we navigate these diverse points of view? Balgis, you work with many of these issues every day, and because you wrote a paper of hope and why climate change is not all gloomy, I wonder if you could start this discussion.
Thank you very much for this is a very interesting question. Yeah, I see the red code is literally red. You see the expanding red list of endangered species, biodiversity, and ecosystems. You see extreme climate, temperature reaching historical records, and leading to devastating impact in terms of human life and forest fires, and so many observed changes and impacts. I see it as a signal or a warning call, and to show the need for action. Maybe it had a positive side, because there are, it used to be like two groups, two power driving the world. One power would like to go into the same conventional trajectory that has brought all the problems that we are facing now. The other power would like to take us to a safer planet. And with all these observed catastrophic events, I think the awareness created, and it tilted now the balance towards the power which are trying to save the world. So in a sense, you can see a blessing in disasters. Sometimes, we need to be a shock for us to act in a more responsive and more serious way. So in a sense, I see there are more commitment now towards solving the problem, especially as it hit not only the developing countries as it was supposed to be, or the projected that the developing countries and the least developed countries will be hit strongest and they will suffer more. Now we see also developed countries suffering in a similar way. We see heat waves killing people in their apartments. We see fires. We see it is like a thing that we didn't want to see, but it's a reality now. And so this